Okay, one nice idea when it comes to Parshas Toldos over here is that, as we know the whole story, that Yitzchak, he sent Esav to prepare food for him, right? So back then they didn't just go into the supermarket, buy a piece of meat, and that's it. They had to go hunt, right? So Yitzchak, he was known as a hunter, Ish Sayed. So Esav, excuse me. So he sent Esav to get food for him, and then he, as we know, gave him the bracha. Now Rivka hears about this and sends Yaakov to bring food to Yitzchak instead. So Yitzchak, when seeing that the food was delivered quicker than expected, so he comes along and he says, "Ma'azeh mehartel limsoya b'ni." How'd you do it so fast? How'd you find it so fast? So Yaakov responds that, "Oh, it was Hashem Elokecha lefanai. It was Hashem. He prepared it before me, right? Ki hikro Hashem Elokecha lefanai. It was Hashem, your God, that prepared it." So the Das Canaan explains that Yaakov was saying that just like Eliezer, who went to find a wife for you, said the same terminology, Hakreyo no lefanai hayom, he caused it to happen to me today, and just like the ram by the Akedah Yitzchak was readily available and it was able to be a replacement very speedily, so too this happened in a fast manner. So what does Yitzchak respond? Yomer Yitzchak el Yaakov, Kishena v'mushecha b'ni ha'at ze b'ni Esav. He said, come over here closer so I could feel if you're my son Esav or not. So Rashi explains that Yitzchak said to himself, wait a second, Esav usually doesn't mention Shem Hashem, he's mentioning Hashem's name over here. But this one said, oh, it was Hashem. It was Hashem that prepared it. So what's going on over here? Yaakov, he was compelled. Rivka had a nevuah, prophecy. And the prophecy was, Yaakov, you have to disguise yourself and pretend that you're Esav. Now he was afraid, the pasuk says. Yaakov was afraid, oh, maybe my identity will get exposed and he's going to feel me. Yitzchak will touch me and he's going to know that I'm a trickster, I'm a deceiver over here. And then I'm going to get cursed. Right? Now, Yitzchak had the midah of Gevura. He was strength. He had Pachad Yitzchak, the name of Rav Hutner Sefer. Pachad Yitzchak, the fear of Yitzchak. Now, Yitzchak, if he would have found out what really happened, he would have been very upset over here. Only the Gemara in the Dar of Dav Zayin says, wherever the Chamim look, there's either death or poverty. So to avoid Yitzchak's wrath, Yaakov disguised himself as Esav to the best of his capability, and he wrapped in the goat skin around his arms, part of his neck, so he would feel like that hairy Esav. In that case, why didn't Yaakov simply change his mode of speech? Right? If Esav didn't use Hashem's name, then neither should have Yaakov. What's going on over here? So I'd like to suggest 4 different answers that I'm aware of. I'm gonna start in chronological order over here when it comes to the answers. Right? The Ramban addresses this. The Ramban, if you take a look in this parak, Chav Zayin, if you take a look at Pasuk Yud Beis, the Ramban asks this question and he twists it a little bit and he says, Ani tama ichlo pachad meheker hakol. How did he not? He actually asked a little bit of a different question. Before we answer this question, we're going to ask a different question. Yeah. Didn't Yitzchak realize from the sound of the voice that it was Yaakov? From the way of speech, everyone talks differently. Ask the Ramban, Eichlo pachad meheker hakol v'kol bnei adam yikarin b'kolim. Everyone's recognizable in the way that they speak. Right?
You can copy a voice.
Oh,
you can...
Very good. So he's gonna give that as one of the answers. Okay. The Gemara in Gittin Chav Gimel says, Ha'ich suma mutter be'ishto. A blind person, how's he allowed to be with his wife? What?
Yeah.
You never thought about that one.
I remember the Gemara.
Okay, well, the answer is because of the voice. Ha'ich b'nei adam mutarim nashosem b'layla. Back then, they didn't have electricity. If the candle's off, how could you be with your wife? The answer is from the voice. You could tell. Elabit tavias eina dekola. from the recognition, from recognizing the voice, the tone, the sound. So if Stam Bnei Adam, regular people, recognize voices, Makirin Kain, Maya Biyitzlak, HaChacham, Abaki, Lahakir, Bein Banav Shteloi, Be'emes Tivias Bekol. If regular people recognize this, for sure, Yitzchak Avinu will. Answers the Ramban, Ulai. He says a lesson of perhaps, Ulai. Perhaps this is really going on Pasach Chav Beis. Hayua Ochim Ha'ilu Dom Bekola. Maybe their voices were similar. They were similar. They sounded similar because they were twins.
My brothers sound similar.
Right? And so that could be one answer. And Kol Yaakov, Yadayim Yesav, what's pshat over there? So he quotes the Bereshis Rabbah in Parshas Hamachei Os Yud Tes. Says that's because he used a softer language and he mentioned Shem Shemayim, which we have to come back to why he mentioned Hashem. That was the original question.
Yep.
Or the Ramban says another answer. Shahayim Mishana Kol Ladaber Kalashnoch, if he would change his voice to sound like his brother. The Ramban says this was 1,000 years ago. Some people know how to mimic others, imitate others. That was your answer. So that's the Ramban's answer. Another answer I heard from someone, which I don't think is the pshat, is that Yitzchak was almost like a little deaf. I don't think that's the pshat, because the pasuk would have said that. The pasuk says that he had bad vision. Akoponim, that's the Ramban's mahalach. Comes along the Rashbam in this parak, Chav Zayin, pasuk Chav Beis. The Rashbam writes, "Lefi shetu'umim hayu," since they were twins. Hayu kolon doima ksas zelazed. Their voices were similar to one another. Lakach to Yitzchak b'kolom ha'acher shemotza ish seir al savara. And that's why he made a mistake when it comes to the voices, because since they were twins, so therefore they had similar voices. So it comes out that explains how Yitzchak wasn't able to recognize the difference of the sounds. But why then would Yaakov speak in such a way, mentioning Shem Hashem? So comes along Rabbi Galinsky and explains that many times he gives drashas, speeches to inspire people. So he says he tries to accept every single invitation that he gets in the hope that his words will bear some fruit.
Wow.
Now, he, as we know, is an alumni of Navardik. The altar of Navardik used to say, one needs to plant everywhere and harvest wherever there's growth. Comes along the Chafetz Chaim and says the forest has tons of animals in it. The hunter goes into the woods to hunt. Does he think he's going to get every single animal? Of course not. He's not going to get every animal. If he gets one deer, one bear, that would be great. In the same way, when someone speaks a Magid Shir, a Darshan, a Magid, he comes up and he speaks. He'll be fortunate if he could inspire everyone in his audience. Very, very lucky. But it's enough for him if he inspires just one person. Even if that one person is only himself. Talk to Chafetz Chaim. That's the Chafetz Chaim. He's quoting the Chafetz Chaim on it. So he says that one time he was in America and he asked to speak to Yeshiva Bachim. He said, for sure, Yeshiva Bachim, I'll speak to Yeshiva Bachim. He arrived in the yeshiva and he stood up to start speaking. He started speaking in Yiddish. So the Rosh Yeshiva says, no, they don't know Yiddish. Right? I think even in BMG, they just said, okay, now we're not going to do everything for everything. I think they're now even Siach Yitzchak, they're not doing Yiddish. It's becoming, yeah, that's what I heard. I heard it's not, they were doing Yiddish for a long time.
I know.
I think I heard that now they're. Anyways, so he starts speaking in Yiddish. Rosh Yeshiva says, uncomfortably shifting, he says, these are American Bachrim, they only understand English. So he says, I'm sorry, even if I wanted to speak in English, I don't know English, couldn't speak in English. So in the end, they found a solution. Rabbi Galinsky spoke in Yiddish, and you had someone translate. He Meturgaman, he would say a sentence or two, and then the translator, he would come in and interpret the words. Another sentence, interpret it. Translator, we've seen it before. Now, this is what it would have been like for Yaakov if he would have to speak without mentioning Hashem's name. To him, he would have been speaking a foreign language that he didn't know. Yaakov wasn't even able to talk in a way that he doesn't mention Hashem's name. Unbelievable idea. That's why he was mentioning Hashem's name. He couldn't help himself.
Couldn't help himself. He was talking such a Lashon.
Right? He couldn't help himself.
Wow.
Let's turn over to Haman. We have Hanukkah coming up, so therefore we're going to turn over to Purim. All right? Haman, what happened? He said, Lahashmig, Laharog, he's going to completely destroy all of the Jews. Right? All the Jews. Now, Esther, at the risk of her life, she came before the king. Right? It wasn't her time to present herself. And because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Rov Rachma V'chazdav in Hashem's kindness, she found favor with Achashverosh, and she was given the chance to invite him and Haman. She was given the chance to invite him and Haman to a party that she would host. So she was asked, what's your request? What do you want? Right? Half of the kingdom, we all know the psukim over here. I'll give you. So she said she wanted him and Haman to return the next day as well, and then she would reveal her request. So the next day, she was asked what her request was, and she answers, we were sold over here. Me and my people, it was decreed we're going to be destroyed and annihilated, all to perish, it says. So the king was very furious. Who's behind all of this over here? Esther responded, there's an adversary, there's an enemy over here, it's Haman. So the Gemara comments that Esther, Gemara Megillah and Tazayim, was actually pointing to Achashverosh, and the Malach pushed her away over there, pushed her hand so that she pointed to Haman. So Klal Yisrael was in danger over here, and this foolish enemy king, he could have prevented it. Esther risked her life to invite him to her party. And what happened? The Gemara in Sanhedrin, Kuf Gimel, Gedolo Legima Shemakreves Es Lavavos. Great is the offer of a drink, it could bring hearts close. Drinks, amazing. Little food. She was hoping to convince Achashverosh to retract from his decree. And then, what? She was pointing at him. Right? Was it worth all the risk? Arousing his fury? Didn't she know what happened the last time to the first wife? Who showed disrespect? Didn't she realize the same could happen to her? She'd get completely killed. The Vilna Gaon explains that Esther was so close with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Hashem, that her words were actually a plea before Hashem. She forgot that she was standing and speaking to Achashverosh. So she's just happening to Hashem. She even forgot she was so close to Hashem. An adversary, an enemy. She pointed to Achashverosh because that's what she had in mind when she was saying her prayer to Hashem. The angel came and helped her out, pushed her hand towards Haman. This is the level of Esther. Then this was certainly the level of Yaakov Avinu, the Muvchar Shabavos, the greatest of the Avos. The Rambam says in Mor Nevuchim that the Avos, they were a perfect example of Shivisi Hashem le Negdi Samid, to always have Hashem by us. Beginning of Shulchan Aruch. The Medrash says, "Avos heina marchava." Gracious Rabbah says that the avos, that they are like the chariot, literally a receptacle for the Shekhinah, the divine presence of Hashem. Yaakov was standing in front of Hashem. How could he speak without mentioning Hashem's name? This is an unbelievable idea, even to potentially ruin everything. All he had to do is just change the way that he talks. No, he couldn't help it because he was so used to using Shem Hashem. This is a beautiful example how, like, if someone would wake us up at 2:30 in the morning, what would be our default? Would be to keep our calm, to keep our manner, to keep our language good in all cases. Sometimes we might interact with someone and their language isn't as good as it's supposed to be, or they a little angry, whatever it is. We have to stay calm. We have to stay how we're supposed to act as a yid, and that's what it has to be, our default. And we have to have that default. Beautiful, unbelievable lesson. All right, that's my little tidbit to share.